I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle, here's my spout. The last time you sang that song, you were probably still in kindergarten. Well, when was your last tea party? Regardless of your age or gender, anyone can attend a tea party, and while you might assume that tea parties are for snooty old wealthy people of the past, tea parties have a history that stems from a variety of countries all around the world. Even now, though tea parties have seen a decrease, tea is still prevalent in today's society. Today, I'll let you know how to host your own tea party, fill you in on some tea party history, and show off the world of tea parties today. So whip out your very best British accent because here's how to host a tea party. The first step in hosting a tea party is establishing a guest list. And I'm not talking about Mrs. Nesbit, Captain Snugglepants, or the Mad Hatter. The invitation process is simple, but should not be pushed aside. A proper invitation is composed of the usual date, time, and location, as well as a brief description of the event. Afternoon times are typically the most suitable and traditional. Make sure to send the invitations at least 14 days in advance for proper warning. If you aren't a fan of the somewhat traditional calligraphy, you can take a modern spin and send out your invites via email or even Facebook. As you receive your RSVPs, preparation is mandatory. As advised by Ellen Easton's of Tea Travels, consider planning an uncomplicated menu to go along with your more ornate table. UrbanHomestead.org suggests that the party is more about the ambiance and the little things like having fun and being with people you enjoy, rather than freaking out over particulars. When the big day finally arrives, be sure to abide by proper etiquette. The days of formal tea parties may be dead, but in getting dressed up, acting proper, and avoiding taking the cliched pinkies up rule too far, your party could be a mirror image of an issue of 1925 Better Home and Gardens. What'sCookingAmerica.net reminds that the pinkies up rule is only to provide balance while holding your cup. Be sure you keep your pinkies slightly tilted, but never straight up in the air. Mrs. Easton's also has some tips for tea time snacks. For some reason or another, scones are a typical complement dish for tea. Their rule is simple. Treat them as a dinner roll, break into small pieces, and apply your spread in small amounts. Keep in mind this isn't a chip bowl, so don't dib. Remember the great tea party scene in Alice in Wonderland, with the Mad Hatter making fun of Alice and the sleeping dormouse? Well, as fun as that tea party looked, unless you can find a crazy hat man to serve as entertainment, I wouldn't recommend using Lewis Carroll's work as a guide. This wasn't tea's first appearance, of course. Tea's claim to fame began in China during the Tang and Song dynasties around 780 AD. According to the Chinese History and Cultural Project, tea and tea parties began as very high-class events and became a leading topic of literature and the arts. By 900 AD, tea had made its way to Japan, where the Japanese tea party, or matcha, put a new spin on the beverage. JapaneseTeaCeremony.net describes the matcha as a spiritual discipline and art. This style differs greatly from the traditional English tea party and even has its own specific choreography. Tea's influence in England is probably the most well-known, however. This idea of afternoon tea or high tea was developed to fill in the gap between large breakfasts and dinners of the English nobility, according to Chris Carson of Tea Muse. Obviously, people would get hungry in between only 2 meals, so this afternoon snack and tea time filled the gap perfectly. Of course, room must be made to mention the most famous tea party in all of American history, the Boston Tea Party. This infamous event occurred on December 16th of 1773. The story goes a bunch of colonists dressed as Indians protested the king's taxes by dumping a shipload of tea into the Boston harbor. The media took a hold of the story right away. However, the term tea party wasn't coined to go along with the incident until the early 1800s, when it was popularized by authors of the time. Obviously, Boston's tea party didn't involve semi-formal get-up and precariously folded napkins. The phrase was just merely a way for people of the time to generalize and understand the shocking occurrence. Alfred F. Young details on this in his book, The Shoemaker and the Tea Party, Memory of the American Revolution. He explains that the term caught on because it coincided with the recovery of the public's memory of the event. At the time, Loyalists saw this as an act of terrorism, so using a term like Tea Party provided a lighthearted connotation for the event, especially for the Sons of Liberty. Obviously, the term has carried on. History books refer to the event as the Boston Tea Party, not the tragic tea incident of Boston Harbor. In America today, the most popular Tea Party reference is still Boston. However, the Tea Party political movement is gaining attention. Paralleling our ancestors, this Tea Party's main platform is opposing high tax. While they've only dumped tea on a smaller scale, their name does make historical sense. They recently held a rally in St. Louis on September 12th, and it was one of 3. And this February marked the 1-year anniversary of St. Louis's very own Tea Party branch. The group also makes historical reference by reusing the slogan, "Don't Tread on Me," from the Revolutionary War era. According to the movement's webpage, teapartypatriots.org, the group hopes to gain popularity through nationwide tea parties and rallies. Tea was also popularized in America through the work of James Clavell. In his novel Shogun, he brought the story of Japanese tea to the United States. The story reached even more success when it hit television as a miniseries in 1980. For the people of Generation Y, however, the most famous tea mentions are the one from Disney movies. Mrs. Potts and her teacup's son Chip play up the English influence of the beverage in the tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast. And Sid's little sister in Toy Story shares tea with Buzz's more feminine alter ego, Mrs. Nesbit. Both easily fit stereotypes of tea being an English tradition or something for young girls. While the term tea party may be in the process of gaining new meaning, that doesn't mean that traditional tea parties must die. Tea is more than just a matter of history and politics. And more importantly, tea isn't just something you can heat up to fix a cold or buy ice for $1 at McDonald's. So why not go back to those kindergarten days when tea parties were perfectly acceptable? When I get all steamed up, hear me shout, tip me over and pour me out.